Joining me today is a very exciting young player who has kept wicket for the Silicon Valley Strikers and the USA U19 team, Rahul Jariwala. Rahul, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
You just followed up your minor league cricket championship season with the Strikers to lead the men's national championships in runs. You've had a great couple of months, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been quite a roller coaster, a lot of highs, but also some lows. I think just finding ways to come back from the lows made the highs even more enjoyable, and I think that's what got me to where I am today.
So, leading the men's national championships in runs, where does that rank for you?
Pretty high, I have to say. I mean, I came into the tournament kind of like just thinking like about ways to have fun, enjoy my cricket. I didn't really necessarily have an expectation to get the highest run score. I was just kind of there to like enjoy my time with my teammates. But as soon as I stepped on the field and I hit my first boundary, I kind of got that feeling like, all right, I'm here and I think I can play at this level.
Right. Now, were you in good form when you headed into the tournament, or had you been a little bit out of practice, or what was your form like?
To be quite honest, after the minor league ended, I talked to my dad and just kind of established that I needed a mental break from cricket. I think that obviously playing hard, practicing hard is extremely important, but taking time away from the game is important too. Just making sure you're okay, like you're doing okay. And I had to work on school and stuff.
Mhm.
So to be completely honest, after the minor league, I played 4 games in my league and I hadn't scored above 20. So I was a little bit low on confidence. But having talked to some of my mentors, I came into this tournament kind of thinking, you know what, I'm not playing with any pressure. There's almost no expectations. I think like for the under 19 guys, it was just for experience and exposure. There was no like expectations like we were going to win any games. And I think that just coming out there and us as a team expecting to win the games, knowing that there was no pressure, it was kind of just like we could all play with a lot more freedom.
Right.
And that really helped as soon as I stepped onto the field for my first innings.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah, it's been a crazy year, I think. I don't think everybody realizes just how much cricket there's been this year. It's had to have been a very stressful year. And thanks to Peter Della Penna, who was there in the flesh documenting as much of the action as possible, we learned that your celebration following your first century was pretty emotional. Can you talk about what was going through your head right then?
I think so. I did know my score, and I remember I was on 99 and I played a dot, and I was like, you know what, just play the way you've been playing the whole game without any pressure. And the next ball, I knocked it down the ground for two, and as I was completing the two, it kind of sank in that like, okay, I did this. So I didn't really know how to react. So I kind of just, took a moment to myself before going to bump gloves with Ritvik Behera, who was on the other end, and I just took a moment to myself and kind of let it all sink in. There was a bit of emotion, but I got up, you know, bumped gloves with Ritvik, and he was just like, "Bro, take your helmet off. Peter's over there." So I looked at Peter, took my helmet off, gave him a nice picture, and got back to work.
You've had a roller coaster year and a half. You did well to finish the 2020 minor league cricket exhibition season. You had your best game in the very last game of that season against a good bowling side in the East Bay Blazers. Then you had a rough U19 nationals, and then you performed pretty well against the U19s at the selection camp in California. And then, of course, minor league cricket, where you won the minor league cricket championship, and now the nationals performing at the level that you did. How do you cope? How do you cope with all this cricket? And, you're a student as well. I know you're a serious student. So how do you deal with all of this?
I think again, it's the breaks that are very important. Obviously, a lot of the cricket and as well as studies is very concentrated. So you'll have concentrated periods of, there's a bunch of cricket right here and you got to play. And then there's also concentrated studies like finals tests that you got to cram for. So I think finding a balance of like, all right, like I'm going to focus on cricket, going to focus on studies, but not letting the other one go is kind of important for me. And as I said, the mental breaks, spending time with my friends, family, just away from both studies and the game kind of just lets me relax and refresh my mind so that I don't feel like I'm pressured to play or pressured to study, and I'm doing it for myself.
Right. And as in most associate nations, that pressure is going to be here as long as you're playing, because you're going to go into a career and all these other things. Like, we look at Saurabh Netravalkar, the captain of the USA ODI side. Very busy guy. He plays in all of the events, and somehow manages to keep a career going. And I know that's got to be really difficult for him to do. I don't think people understand how much harder it is for a cricketer in a country like this, where you can't just put all your eggs in that basket. You have to still keep up with your studies and keep up with another career. And ultimately, in all the cricket all around the world, you can only play cricket so long. So it's good to have that fallback anyways. Going into each game, I saw that in the nationals in the men's national championship, you weren't batting in this position that you had batted in throughout minor league cricket, where you were an opener. The nerves, at least in my experience, having played sports like baseball and stuff, the nerves are different depending on the position that you play. At least it was for me. Like I know when I was a leadoff batter, which is like an opener, you know that you have to. And in baseball, you have multiple at bats, so it's not always apples to apples. But in other positions, I always kind of felt like I didn't have to have a great at bat right away. Like whereas when you're an opener, or when you're a leadoff batter, you have to have a good at bat to set the tone for the game for your whole team. I imagine it's different. The nerves going into bat to open the game are different than sitting and waiting. Especially when you're used to being an opener. How do you deal with that difference?
Absolutely. So I think while opening, it's just like, you're set and you're ready to go right away. And you don't have that time to kind of sit and think too much and get in your head. You kind of just go and you're out there and you're playing. But with batting in the middle order, you need to know mentally. I think, again, your mental aspect is very important when it comes to the game. So you need to know when to turn off and then switch on, because to be completely honest, to be switched on for that long, like that big period of time is not very possible. You will lose focus. So for me, if I'm batting number 4 or 5, I'll be switching off, talking to my teammates, having fun. But right as the next wicket goes and as I'm the next batsman, that's when I start to switch on. It's when I'm watching the bowler. So it's kind of just like, again, giving your mind a break, because your mind is your teammate. The mind works for you, but only when you give it enough rest. And so what I try to do is kind of just, again, space it out. So if I'm batting 4, when the first wicket falls, that's when I turn on. So just kind of giving myself that break, which I don't have to do while opening.
Right. Yeah, I was talking to some friends recently. It's tough to analyze cricket stats for batters, because really the only guy who comes in the same situation every game is the opener. Everybody else has to play according to the flow of the game at the moment. What is it like playing under Unmukt Chan's leadership in minor league cricket for the Strikers?
I think Unmukt just brought a lot of experience for me, not only playing under him, but opening with him. I did have a lot of chats with him. I did practice a lot with him. And obviously there were some technical aspects that he worked with me on, but it was a lot about the mental part of the game. He taught me, while the early part of my minor league season was not very great, and in the middle we had a chat and he kind of said, we both know that you're capable of playing at this level, but you need to play your game. Don't get like overwhelmed by the situation or the weight of the game. Just kind of go in there and have fun. And I think not only him saying that, but having him on the other end to kind of tell me that repeatedly over and over again, between overs, between balls, and to have his backing, like a player like that, a player with a ton of experience, a player that's played at a high level, and knowing that that player is backing you to do well, I think that just brings a lot of confidence for myself.
I think his leadership I've already heard stories of, of his discipline and what he expects from his teammates, and the level he holds himself to. So I think all of that stuff seems to be rubbing off very well. It makes a lot of difference. Not only that you're playing with older players, but you're playing with older players like him, who have that package and bring that to the table. So who's your favorite wicket keeper?
I think for me, this is pretty simple. It has to be Dhoni. Has to be Dhoni. There's no other option here.
Yeah, I would have guessed that. I would have definitely guessed that. I think my favorite is Sarah Taylor. I just love watching.
Oh, she's really good with the gloves. Yeah.
So who's your favorite non-cricket athlete?
This is a tough one, but I'd have to say Derek Jeter. My dad, when he came to America, he went to school in Albany, New York. So the first team he followed was the Yankees, and he brought it here to Cali. And just watching Derek Jeter in his prime as I was a young kid, it's truly special the kind of athlete and leader he was, and I learned from both of those things, both as an athlete and a leader from him.
Oh, that's really cool to hear you say a baseball player. So how much baseball do you watch?
Um, I do watch a good amount of baseball, not recently though, but I have played baseball. I played as a varsity on the varsity team as a freshman and as a sophomore. I wasn't able to play in my junior year, but I'm hoping to play again this year. But yeah, I think I started baseball before I started cricket actually.
Great,
But
great.
yeah, I think those two sports have really helped me both independently and together.
Yeah, there's a lot of research that says youth players playing multiple sports have a big advantage. A lot of, especially in the cricket world, you probably know a lot of people who specialize very early. It's not necessarily a good idea to specialize early. Because as you said, you can take a lot from each sport. Well, from baseball to cricket, but you can take a lot from every sport into another sport. Each sport has its highlights and lessons that you learn in that sport. And cricket teaches very specific lessons that other sports don't teach as much, but some of those other sports teach lessons cricket doesn't teach as much.
Absolutely.
Too many times I see fans of one sport say that one sport's better than the other, and I don't subscribe to that at all. I think they're both fantastic sports. So with Ireland coming up in late December, what would it mean to you to be selected to that series in Florida?
Um, Honestly, being born here and being brought up following cricket, watching USA move up the ranks in ODI status, I think playing for the USA men's team, debuting for that team has been a dream. Um, I don't want to say too much. I don't want to jinx it, but to be there in Florida with the men's team would truly be special. I had a few talks with some of the men's guys. Like I've known Saurabh, I've worked with him a lot, and I had a talk with Steven Taylor, and both of them just told me, keep working. Great guys, are really humble, really down to earth, and like the fact that they were willing to give their time away to just talk to a youngster and kind of help me understand what I need to get to the next level was truly amazing.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's great to hear that. I found both of those guys you mentioned, I found them both to be excellent guys. So if you weren't a cricketer, what would you do? What sport would you play if it wasn't for cricket? What would you focus on?
I have to say baseball. I mean, my coach is still texting me asking me if I can play for him this year. And the coach of my baseball team at high school, I've actually played with him all throughout Little League and as a kid, and like a second family to me. I can't lie. Like they're great people. Just baseball also creates some amazing memories the same way you get on the cricket field. I mean, just going through Little League with the same group of kids that are also going to my school just created some really nice bonds, and I'm still friends with most of them to this day. So I think
That's
I'd have to play baseball.
that's awesome. What position do you prefer in baseball?
Um, I played some shortstop. Yeah,
That's a good one. Yeah, that was my favorite position too. Excellent. Well, Rahul, thank you for joining me and good luck. And we'll keep our fingers crossed about Ireland.
for sure. Thank you so much, Nate.
For more of USA and Canada cricket coverage and more associate cricket coverage, tune into emergingcricket.com, follow us on socials at Emerging Cricket, and feel free to contribute on Patreon.